Yeah, let's roll.
Hello, hello. Check, 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 check. Test, test. Am I audible? Can you hear me? Yeah? Ryan can hear me. Thank you. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the pre-presentation applause. I appreciate that. Good energy. So first, I want to tell you guys I recognize fully that there are multiple topics going on simultaneously, and a lot of the topics kind of cross over with one another. And I fully respect the fact that attention is an ever growing valuable commodity these days. So the fact that you guys are in here giving us your attention, we really, really appreciate that. So with that in mind, I'm really, really excited about today's conversation. We have some very impressive panelists to talk to. And what we'll do here as kind of an introduction, first I'll just let you know who they are, what company they represent, and then I'd love for each one of these gentlemen to start breaking into their viewpoint of manufacturing or smart manufacturing specifically. So with that, we have Joe Zachariah from our Rockwell Automation organization. We have Bala Morgan Balakrishnan. We call him, he's also AKA Bala Squared, or Bala, if you want to keep it short. And then we have, and he's with Microsoft. And then we have Ross Harmson from US Cellular. So to get things started, gentlemen, I'd love for you guys to just go ahead and we'll just go in line here. Start with what you do for Rockwell Automation, Microsoft, and US Cellular, and then kind of lead into what are your initial thoughts of how you describe or define what smart manufacturing is.
Okay. Is this on? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So my name is Joe Zachariah, as James mentioned, but I work for Rockwell Automation, been with Rockwell about 25 years. I am in their academic industry group, and what does that mean? So we develop workforce for advanced manufacturing, and we work with academic institutions, we work with government agencies, we work essentially across that entire ecosystem to make sure there is workforce to support the adoption of advanced manufacturing. So what does advanced manufacturing mean? Well, it's more than just automation. We've been doing automation for 100 years if you go back that far. What we're doing is we're now taking information and making people more capable of making good decisions in a more timely manner. That's what all these wonderful tools that are available to us now, that's what it's doing. It's expanding the capability of each of the workforce you have. Then that gives you more advantages as far as competitiveness. It gives you more advantages as far as reliability, as far as being able to make quick business decisions and know that you have a higher confidence level that they'll be very accurate. That's essentially what the driver is.
Thanks, Joe. Bala?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming here. So it's a pleasure to see you all. My name is Bala. I'm from Microsoft. Does anyone know introduction on what Microsoft does? Just kidding, just kidding. So my day job is mostly going to customers, trying to figure out how to do digital transformation. That's a very good or bad, depending on how you look at it, but mostly transforming businesses and how to make them consume high tech and how to transform themselves. That's my day job is. Now, in terms of manufacturing, I don't know how many of you know that we had a recent announcement. Biden was here, and Microsoft is investing with the state as a whole in multiple different ways. We are looking at investment on scaling, but we are also doing a huge investment on data center. So we are going to be one of the best state to have one of the first AI data center for Microsoft. So very exciting. And then we didn't stop with that. We are also doing a co-innovation lab focused on manufacturing. You can call it smart manufacturing, intelligent manufacturing, whatever you wanted to call it, but I'm more looking at as what is the next generation, what is the next thing that we are going to do in manufacturing. So we're going to have a AI co-innovation lab with University of Wisconsin. We call it Connected Systems Institute. If you don't know, please go check it out. That's where we are going to bring in innovation for manufacturing through AI, 5G, and other quantum and few other technologies. Plus, we are also going to do skilling on AI for anybody and everybody in the state. So that's how we look at what the smart manufacturing future is going to be.
That's very exciting. Thank you
Yeah,
for that.
very exciting. Thank you.
And before we get to Ross, he's my colleague, just full disclosure, but Ross has got very unique experience. Now, currently works for a cellular provider, but before that, being both on the network OEM side of things, and then you've also been an executive in manufacturing, so I'm sure you're going to bring kind of a triage of perspective.
Yeah, I'm Ross Harmson. I'm with U.S. Cellular, Industry 4.0 Business Development. Within U.S. Cellular, we have emerging tech group that includes IoT and private cellular network. My focus is private cellular networking, and specifically in the industry of Industry 4.0, which is manufacturing and distribution. A really good fit for the efforts here in not only in the region but in Wisconsin, and to partner with Microsoft and Rockwell. A little background on myself: about 25 plus years of emerging technology, mostly in software. About the last decade, really in the digital transformation effort with MES systems, which is manufacturing execution systems. And manufacturing execution systems are typically one of the first purveyors of shop floor digitization, and taking paper-based processes and digitizing them. Digitization led to data, data led to analytics, and analytics leads to AI. So from a background standpoint, I've been from anywhere from infrastructure to AI. And where that leads me into private cellular is really a unique introduction, because I spent some time with a very large global manufacturer, and as they brought in new technologies, one of the paramounts was the network, and it was network and compute. And all mission critical applications at the CIO and CTO layer was advised to be on cellular. Now, cellular is different outside the United States. Cellular connectivity typically falls in the hands, before CBRS, in the hands of a carrier. So you had to go to AT&T, to Verizon, US Cellular, et cetera. In other countries, the government hands over or can give you access to 5G. So you'll see 5G technology specifically in manufacturing in other countries, not necessarily the United States, until CBRS was introduced. Hence comes our value proposition. Most mission critical applications in highly scalable manufacturing environments in APAC and in Europe are built on cellular. And as a result, as manufacturing becomes more prevalent in the United States, and the introductions of advanced technologies, AGVs, AMR, AI, you'll see manufacturing look to better build that infrastructure to enable those applications. So that's where US Cellular is leading that effort, not only in the region, but in the United States with private cellular networks.
That's great. Thank you. So let's go ahead and get into it. And Bala, I think I'm going to start with you on this. Fun fact, I don't know if you guys were able to catch the lady on the video when you walked in that was talking about the Connected Systems Institute. That's fully AI, right? And that was provided by Microsoft?
100% AI.
And not weird at all, but it was really, it's really cool. So let's talk a little bit about some of the initiatives and projects that Microsoft's doing specifically to support AI. I mean, you guys are the global leader for software in the world. So how are you thinking about AI? What are some specific projects and initiatives that you guys are excited about right now?
So right now, we are running the AI wave. That is where most of our concentration has been. But AI has always been on the scientific type, in the universities, people doing research. What we have found in the last year and a half after the ChatGPT got released, I'm sure all of you, how many have you tried ChatGPT? Thank you. Look at that. So
Microsoft stock just went up.
I know, right? Very good. Keep raising your hands. I'm just kidding. So it is. So what we have seen is like ChatGPT has shown us that technology can be changed very quickly, and it can be for the good and the bad. But we'll look at it as in the good terms of it. So we are focusing most of our efforts on how can you incorporate these large language model and transform your work operations. That doesn't mean we are not looking at as an, don't take it by any means like an RPA, like a process automation or anything like that. We are looking at it in a different way. Actually, we are going away from automation and seeing how these tools can empower the manufacturing skill and make the user an intelligent worker. That is how we are actually looking at it. So if you look at all our Copilot stacks are all meant to augment a human rather than replacing the job. So, I mean, if you want automation, go to Rockwell and US Cellular. Just kidding. But
really,
ultimately, what we wanted to do is like we wanted to bring the knowledge engine to the end user so that they can do their jobs better. But we're not going to stop from there also. So we are building all this AI data center. You can ask why, right? So we wanted to also transform the way the industry has been operating. Like mostly we write a lot of software codes and we like logic programming, and it is very hard to change, and it is very hard to maintain. You need skilled workers for those. So for those things, what we are looking at is like, can we infuse AI where it can be a little bit more agile and adapt to some changes in the manufacturing plant floor and actually make it better? So we are looking at that angle. We are looking at vision-based AI. Even Rockwell is a great example. One of my first projects in Microsoft was Rockwell Automation, where we went and actually, for a SMT plant, we used Vision AI to do quality inspections. Now, we are also be very cautious that we know that not everything AI can do. Don't think that you can replace the entirety into AI. We actually go and look at opportunities where the AI can augment and help and start replacing them. So there are a lot of like employee safety use cases, a lot of vision-based. We built a factory GPT. I see Joe here, so please go to CSI and ask him to show. We have a chatbot that can actually educate and guide you how to run a factory line. So we are building things like that and infusing it to the industry. Obviously, we are going to do research which will come like 5 years from now. Right now, we are talking about agentic frameworks. I don't know how many of you are looking at agents. Those are like small little agents that can do a single task extremely well, and we'll build a network of agents that can talk to each other and do its job by itself. They're looking at that also. We are also looking at quantum computing. Quantum is another area where these large language models, if you have heard, they don't need 1 GPU, 2 GPUs. We need like thousands of them. The idea and the thought process for the future is like, can quantum make it much easier? A small quantum computer might be able to do 10 times more the large language models that we have right now. So those are the areas that we are infusing. We are also building the tools. So as you know, Microsoft is not like we don't build any manufacturing products, right? But we are trying to build the next generation tools that companies like Rockwell, US Cellular can adapt and also like infuse that into the manufacturing industry and other industries. So that's the short version.
The short version, yeah, that's great. Real quick, I want to double down with you on something though. So one of your most popular products that you guys offer that's been helping with automation has been Azure. So can you share a little bit of insights about your thoughts and how that plays into the world of smart manufacturing?
So Azure is our cloud. Especially in Azure, the most that we see momentum right now is in the AI space. So we have a plethora of AI. We call it Azure AI Services. Immediately, I'm sure you all are thinking it's going to be very expensive. I can guarantee you it is not. It depends on how we use it. So that is how we are. The way that we have actually bringing the cloud is like we are making it much easier even for a small and a medium-sized business to start consume and look at process differently, and you can come and envision that in Azure. That's our promise. So we are building cloud-scale analytics, so you don't have to go big. You can start very, very, very small, That's what we did in here also with Rockwell and CSI. I've worked at, I think, quite a few companies inside Wisconsin a lot. They all start very, very, very small. And then you also have the scale because we are a hyperscaler. And we also provide clouds in multiple countries. If you're a global company and if you want data sovereignties to be split across multiple countries, you can also do that as well. So that's basically what our cloud infrastructure is going to be.
Simple.
Very simple.
That's great. Joe, I'm going to go to you now, if it's okay. So I think most people in this room know that Rockwell Automation is the global leader of industrial automation. One of the taglines that Rockwell Automation carries is enhancing human capability. Can you share with us, what does that actually mean from your perspective?
Sure. So, and we talked about this. We touched on this earlier on. So, if you think about the state of the workforce these days, a lot of the very senior, very seasoned people are leaving. They're all my age, right? We're retiring. We're leaving the workforce. But the younger people come in don't have that depth of knowledge. They don't have that depth of understanding. So what is available to them to catch up? Well, they can learn the same lessons over and over again, which is not particularly efficient, and generally education in that way is kind of painful. Or you could take the knowledge that has built up in the experience of these very seasoned workers and embed that in certain AI models and embed that in certain expert systems. Those then become tools that will enhance the capability of the rest of the workforce. So if you think about it, and I'll talk in terms of maintenance because that's what I tend to land on. If you think about it, you have a manufacturing facility and certain machines, there are certain people that are extremely well versed in that machine. They have tremendous domain knowledge there. And when it fails or when it has a problem, that's the person they call. Well, that's great as long as that person's there. When that person's not there, then what do? Do you get an army of engineers to stand around and hover around it and hope they can figure out what the problem is? Or do you take that knowledge and that domain understanding of that system and embed it in a system that's going to walk you through the process or that can help automatically determine the scenario that you've just experienced? That latter situation is what we're trying to develop and working with AI, using AI models to create effectively adaptive manufacturing, because manufacturing systems, automated systems, they do the same thing over and over and over again. That's what automation is. However, when you have a scenario-based system, in other words, a system that understands all the different failure modes potentially of that particular manufacturing asset, if you're monitoring it properly and your model is properly defined, you can tell when you're starting to go out of compliance. And then when it goes out of compliance, then you can make adjustments. So you can continue running, continue maintaining a level of quality, even though you're starting to have some deterioration in the process, or maybe just an instant event where you have maybe a bad product or a bad component get into the line, right? Being able to use vision systems to tell whether or not we should continue with making that product, or do we use all that production time to take it all the way to the end. We want to take that stuff out as soon as we recognize it. So we're working with Bala and US Cellular, and we're going to be implementing vision systems to check different scenarios, as well as the monitoring the operation of the physical machine, and combine those two to be able to determine if we're in a scenario that needs to have some tension. And in that case, we're going to essentially, we're calling it auto healing, but effectively it's an adaptive control or adaptive manufacturing process. That's going to be significant, and that's some of the research we intend to be doing at CSI.
So when I think about technology in general, you've got the providers or suppliers of that technology, you've got the users of the technology, and I feel like when technology gets more and more complicated, that also makes the relationship between the supplier and user a bit more complicated. So when you think about the world of advanced technology, which all three of you represent within your own fields, how do you think about advanced technology's effect on the supplier-user relationship?
Well, from from the supplier-user relationship, I tend to, and I say this often, I tend to think that the concept of supplier-user is going to eventually fade away. They have to be partnerships. You have to pick your partners well. You have to know that you're in it for mutual benefit, and you have to accept that. You don't want to go cheap. You don't want to go with somebody who gives you the best price necessarily, because you're not going to get the long-term support. None of this is an event anymore. Now it's a long-term, continuous improvement modeling mechanism that's going to take you forward. So we partner with Microsoft, we partner with US Cellular, we partner with Fortinet. So there's networks, there's sensing, there's controls, there's vision systems, there's levels of compute, there's cybersecurity. No one company can do all that. So we all work together, we all collaborate together, so that we can bring the greatest value and the highest confidence level of success to that process. And all the manufacturers are really going to have to start thinking about things that way.
That's a really good perspective, and I think I'm going to double down on that later in more of a group discussion. But before we get there, Russ, I'd love to get some specific insights from you. In your intro, you talked about 5G. Obviously, we work for US Cellular, so 5G is really important to us. And you mentioned private 5G. You threw out an acronym of CBRS. To get things started, can you kind of just break down or straw man what is private 5G for the audience from your perspective?
Sure. Private 5G, from a spectrum standpoint, kind of drops into different flavors, and I'm just speaking it from a telco standpoint. 5G is like AI. It's a buzzword, and it hits the brand and it hits the TV. But actually, our approach at US Cellular is very customer-centric. We may get in the door with 5G, but when we look at the business requirements, the data requirements, security and latency, a lot of times we may step that back and to say, either from a cost or deployment perspective, we can deploy an LTE network that's cellular versus 5G. It all is going to be dependent upon the customer requirements. So there are spectrums that we can deploy, which is our own spectrum, 5G, but we also deploy CBRS spectrum. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is solve the customer problem and make that fast and efficient to drive value through whatever that use case is. It's interesting from a manufacturing standpoint, and this is a fact. Manufacturers today in their environment are wired or Wi-Fi. And typically, mission critical applications by US manufacturers are run on a wired system. Wi-Fi is a nice to have, and typically are being run on not necessarily mission critical systems, but they're there because they provide the flexibility, but not in scale. As manufacturers begin to adopt advanced technologies, as Joe and Bala have alluded, what they're realizing is that compute and infrastructure allows them to deploy. Where they need adaptability, flexibility, and mobility, they can't get that with wired. On the Wi-Fi side, if you're in scale, John Deere's 2.5 million square foot facility has 250 Wi-Fi endpoints. On a cellular radio, we can cover about 500,000 with 500,000 square foot with one radio, and it becomes a 20-to-1 ratio, and you can save a lot of money by propagating a cellular connection in a large facility that gets the same reliability, better security, and lower latency. So when manufacturers today start to contemplate their investment and AI, machine vision, advanced robotics, which include AMR, AGV, they really start to look at the infrastructure that exists and the alternatives they have to meet mobility, security, and latency. So 5G plays a critical role in enabling AI and use cases like machine vision.
That's great. So you touched on Wi-Fi. When you think about private 5G, and this question comes up all the time, is this a rip and replace of a Wi-Fi system? You just did some comparison to Wi-Fi, saying that the scalability of private 5G is much larger. Talk to us about the relationship between private 5G and Wi-Fi.
Yeah, great question. It's not an either or. As a matter of fact, it's a complementary network, and there's been there's things called hybrid networks, right? Hybrid being I can run multiple types of networks, but we actually look at hybrid networks as public-private, indoor-outdoor, and U.S. Cellular has a really unique value proposition here. Is that not only do we not suggest that you replace wired or Wi-Fi, but we look at the use cases where the value of 5G really brings to light or allows you to operationalize your use case. But most importantly is that private cellular networks today, and even John Deere will tell you, they only think of it as indoor until they met us. And then we said, look, we can deploy a private network, but you don't lose the control of that asset or that tracking and traceability once you leave the building. As a matter of fact, because of our business model and our relationships with other carriers, you can track and trace that asset through your entire supply chain, from the warehouse to the manufacturing facility to the end user, without losing control on that network. So the hybridization of a network, both public and private, but also internally, U.S. Cellular has the ability to sit really nicely and complement Wi-Fi and wired.
That's great. Thank you. So out of everything the three of you have been saying today, there's been a couple buzzwords that I want to just kind of open up to the three of your perspective. I want you guys to go a little bit farther for us and give us your viewpoint on these topics. But the three buzzwords that stick out to me are workforce, scalability, and then the other one was really around like innovation or collaboration within an innovative environment. Let me put it that way. So let's start with the collaboration, Joe. I think you did a really wonderful job teeing that topic up with your last comment. How do you think about collaboration? I mean, the three of our organizations are clearly working together today on this effort, but what's your philosophy with partnership in general from a Rockwell point of view?
Well, collaboration cuts across so many different facets. The most impactful one right now is in the area of workforce, and so I'm going to touch two topics at the same time. But we're talking about collaboration with academic institutions, with industry, with government agencies, and how that all comes together, and we're operating in alignment. The skills gap for manufacturing, just in general, not even advanced manufacturing, is massive across the country. There's millions of openings with nobody to fill them. The ability to scale our capability to educate and create that available talent requires cooperation and collaboration across that ecosystem. Internally, if you look at a single business or a single enterprise, the collaboration has to happen across all your operational groups: finance, purchasing, production, maintenance, HR. Everybody's in this together. Unfortunately, what you see in a lot of legacy manufacturers is those are all separate groups with separate incentives. So it makes it really hard to make that shift. In order for us to really take complete advantage of the advanced technologies that are available and the networks and the infrastructures and the capabilities that are there, it will be necessary for companies to reevaluate the way they are structured. You need to reevaluate how people work together. You're going to have to reevaluate how they're incentivized. Otherwise, they're not going to get maximum benefit from the technologies. The technology is not magic. It's the behaviors that they evoke is what's really going to change and benefit the companies.
You guys have any other additions that you threw in there?
I can add a lot. So
You're on the clock, Bala. Come on.
Oh, shit. Okay, clock me. So from my side, at least from the Microsoft side, we have multiple levels. We are a platform company, which means we have the responsibility to go train our partners like Rockwell, US Cellular, and things like that, plus also the end users who are going to use and consume our systems. So if you would have, I touched upon the announcement that we did. The announcement was pretty much around how to make Wisconsin like an AI state of the US, right? We are looking at, I mean, it's just not putting the data center, but also we are looking at close to, I believe if I'm right, 100,000 people, skill them up in AI. That is one initiative that we are trying to do. There is another initiative that is going through TechSpark. We are reaching all the K-12 and teaching like computer science and AI and things like that. But then we also actually are partnering in CSI, where we are going to bring in like manufacturing-based learning materials and have a means to where you guys can come and get trained and learn. The reason why we do that is like in my day-to-day job, at least 10 or 20%, I mean, my real job, like 30-40% is learning. So I cannot come and tell you what I said yesterday is true today. It changes so rapidly, so I got to constantly learn. But we do understand that's just in the IT, the software industry, right? For manufacturing, like Joe touched upon, the culture has to change a little bit so that the corporations have to allow employees to take some time in their own that 40, 45 hours a week time spread to learn something new. And we are creating that avenues so that you can come and learn in a very easy manner. We're also looking at technologies like that's what Joe was touching upon, which Ross was touching, like the AI video, right? That is a form of like, how do we bring in new AI technology to skill somebody? Like a lot of people like to listen to videos. They don't want to see it. They want to listen. So how do you create AI-based videos so you can do multitasking and learning? So we're looking at a lot of avenues. But scaling is a huge thing with Microsoft. We're not just doing, we also did a huge cybersecurity course, and I think they were close to about 200,000 or 500,000 people have been trained so far across United States, and that is growing. So we're going to bring that here also. But for this state, we are looking at how to bring back AI manufacturing jobs and make manufacturing cool in Wisconsin. So if you guys have any ideas, please let us know.
That's great. Thank you. Ross, you have anything?
I would just echo the comments on the workforce. I would say this, when I put a plug in for CSI, it's a very valuable asset that UWM has created with CSI, and for a couple reasons. Having grown up in Wisconsin and my father retiring from Mercury Marine, and when we look at these facilities today, most small to medium-sized manufacturers don't have labs. They have to OJT, and they don't have time for OJT because they got to get stuff out the door. When CSI stood up this lab, it gives small, mid-sized manufacturers to take a look at what newer technologies they can test without occupying their shop floor. And this haven that has been created for these manufacturing businesses is potentially could create a competitive advantage for them by incorporating these types of technologies, including AI. So I would say just from a Rockwell Automation and Microsoft and US Cellular being involved in that effort at CSI is huge, not only for Wisconsin manufacturing, but the region in general, guys, I want to tell you, manufacturing, when people think of manufacturing, they think of Rockwell, or they think of Johnson Controls, or something like that. But 70% of manufacturing is $50 million top line revenue and less. And those are small, mid-sized businesses that need assets and resources like CSI. And it's why we're so proud, and I know Rockwell and Microsoft are very happy to not only be involved in CSI, but enabling advanced technology to manufacturing.
I'll add one more thing. So you touched upon the innovation part of it, which I didn't give you guys more information. So like what Ross said, go check out CSI because we are setting up an AI co-innovation lab. It's actually funded by Microsoft inside the campus itself. The reason for that is as Microsoft, we come up with these new technologies, and it's sometimes scary to use it. I agree, yes. But the lab will provide you that avenue to come and co-innovate and envision your ideas and see whether it is doable or not. Not all the dreams come true, but you can dream. And you can actually come to the co-innovation lab, work with even partners. We are also looking at how to bring the partners into play, and actually come and innovate. And you can actually innovate in terms of not only the operation space, you can also innovate in terms of your next generation product lines. You can also innovate your business processes, like a call center, if you want to optimize it. So you can go cut across any business units or business organization, but at the same time, you can also come and work with new tech, cutting edge, with your existing tech and see whether it is doable or not. So take advantage of it. This is one of a kind that we did. Because for Microsoft, we actually have a couple of co-innovation labs, but it's only in Microsoft campus. We don't put anywhere else. And that is where we bring our customers and we innovate with them. Very early stages innovation. It could be in any industry. It could be in any part of the business functions. Here, especially, we are looking at how to bring in university partners. We are also bringing in the Titletown because Titletown was sitting in Green Bay, so we are bringing them back into Milwaukee so we can invest more here, build the entrepreneurship mindset in here, and come up with new companies from Milwaukee also. So you will have investments in here as well. So you can take advantage of all of those. And this is unique because it's going to be partnered with a university, Titletown, and the partners. And it's focused only for manufacturing. And the best part is we don't have anything like this anywhere in the world, one of a kind.
That's great. Thank you for that. So a couple things that I heard in your responses on that topic, though, common theme, I heard you all talking about workforce development. I heard you obviously you mentioned just now, Bala, about entrepreneurship. And so one of the things that I think about here is each of us are really laying out a foundation that can stimulate innovation. And I think when industry is changing, that's where a lot of entrepreneurs come out. Just a fun fact, I'm a cellular history buff, but when the executives in the cellular world developed 4G, they had no idea what it was going to be good for besides video downloads being faster. That was about it. And there was really no special sauce behind the scenes and new ways of monetizing the network. None of that was being thought of. We had no idea that Grubhub and Uber and all these really interesting business concepts would come from the foundation of 4G. And the same thing is going to go for 5G, and the same thing can be said for AI. And so I'm saying all this to lead you guys to the point of workforce development. I believe it was you, Bala, you had talked about trying to bring more business to the Midwest, more business to Wisconsin. I mean, Joe talks about this all the time. The Midwest is 70% of manufacturing in the country. So what are your thoughts on how all this technology is going to play into that workforce development and overall job growth in the Wisconsin area?
Yeah, I'll
Back
take
to
this
Bala, I
one
guess.
first. Yeah. Great question. So we are in the manufacturing capital pretty much. And also supply chain is a huge area. As you all know, with COVID, how much of a supply chain challenges we had, right? All our manufacturing has gone out the state doesn't have manufacturing jobs. I mean, there is jobs, but we can't fill it. But then traditionally, we have been always doing manufacturing in one way. To change that, to continue that, it'll be very expensive to build or do anything inside Wisconsin. I mean, the skills have gone. A lot of the manufacturing have gone out of Wisconsin. They have spread across now. So how do you bring back manufacturing inside Wisconsin, but at the same time create new generation of jobs and be economical, right? I mean, we have to fight with other states and our products and have to be also competitive. So this is why I like technology to come in play. I don't want to, we don't want to replace anything that they are doing, but can we use the technology to make it cheaper and better so that we can actually employ the people in Wisconsin? Maybe once we grow, maybe we'll bring everybody from everywhere else and bring it to Wisconsin and increase the population here. That might be a futuristic thing. So that's how we are actually looking and seeing, like, hey, how can we make it very appealing for people to come and work in Wisconsin? You know, that's the ultimate goal.
That's great. You guys have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean the ability to bring all this together and bring the technologies here. It's really how you take them and package them. I mean, when you're putting systems in place, there's all these wonderful technologies. You've got AI, that's a wonderful thing. You've got networking, that's a wonderful thing. But when you think about it in terms of a manufacturing facility, some of it is infrastructure, some of it is utility, some of it is going to drive innovation. You have to have the people inside to understand these different technologies so they know how to string them together. What we've done together at CSI is give us an opportunity to put it all together there so we can see it. Everything works great on a PowerPoint, right? Hey, we just plug these things together. Look how wonderful it is, right? And everybody nods and is real happy until you actually try to put it in. A good example is there was a paper published by one of the grad students at CSI who integrated the 5G network into their traditional wired network for the operations side. So if the plant floor is connected over 5G. That's novel, right? So there's now a white paper written to show, and it talks about all the different, we'll say, toe stubbers and potholes that we stepped in as they went through that process. Because guess what? Every time you put anything in, you're going to run into those. If you can evaluate those and create that knowledge base, that body of knowledge, that takes the risk out of adoption. And that's a big part of what we are doing at Rockwell's doing at CSI and what the rest of us are doing at CSI. And also gives us the opportunity to see if this is actually going to create a competitive advantage and package what we call repeatable solutions so that they can be adopted by anyone very, very quickly in scale. So these are the kind of things that we're thinking about. It's not just, hey, look at this cool technology, I want one, right? This is more about how do we use it to create a competitive advantage and, in the case of supply chain, create a more resilient supply chain for the country.
That's great. Thank you. Do you have anything else you'd add to that, Ross? I know there's a lot that was just shared.
Just to echo that, the pandemic did a lot of things, not all positive, but one thing that stood out and that we saw in manufacturing is the dependency on supply chain. And that supply chain dependency, both from a people standpoint and an interoperability to perform and produce a product, made U.S. manufacturers kind of look at each other and say, what do we need to do to bring manufacturing back to the United States so to eliminate some of those supply chain interdependencies? One of them is cost competitiveness. And as you look at what other manufacturers are doing across the globe, they're a little bit further ahead when it comes to advanced technology. But I'll tell you, today, if we can get manufacturers to embrace technology, to make things a little bit more scale and become more cost competitive, manufacturing will come back to the United States, will become more cost competitive, not necessarily price, because that's a really key P&L thing to think about. It's a cost number in manufacturing because their buyers don't move on price. Year to year, they come back to them and they say, in order for you to make more money or keep my business, you gotta keep your price the same or bring it down, and it puts pressure on margin. And it puts, that margin pressure puts pressure on the operations to do things simpler, faster, better, and that's where advanced technology comes in.
Awesome, thanks. So I want to be respectful of time. I don't like to trespass on our Summerfest Tech brethren here. So I think what we'll do here, we have about 10 minutes left. I'd like to have just a closing message from each of you maybe. And for the audience, we would love to answer any questions that you guys might have. So kind of start thinking about that now. If for the last 5 minutes after they're done with their notes, you don't have questions, I'll just start telling jokes and stories. So just put that seed out there.
If you want to do questions now, we can close up too.
Would you guys rather do questions now?
Yeah, once you do questions down, then we can close up.
Okay, I'm flexible. Do you guys have any questions?
Allow this crowd.
There's one.
No questions.
Got multiple. Okay, I saw you first. Go ahead.
How does, so your traditional manufacturing facility tends to be in a metal building. What is the best solutions for that today? With 5G and cellular networks?
Yeah, as a matter of fact,
Yeah, the question was, a lot of manufacturing facilities are heavy metal. So how does connectivity work with cellular, I think is where you're going, in a building that's probably difficult to penetrate as far as spectrum's concerned?
yeah, it's an excellent question, and it's one of the reasons why manufacturers are so hardwired is because Wi-Fi doesn't work well in high interference, old brick buildings, where there's a lot of metal or noise, right? When I've been involved in RFID planning and providing cellular network, I can tell you that the cellular connectivity far outperforms any Wi-Fi signal. I'll use an example of, again, because I just was there at John Deere's Harvester Works manufacturing 2.5 million square feet of noise, scaffolding, you name it. It was a 20-to-1 ratio between the number of radios they needed for cellular and Wi-Fi connections. 240 plus Wi-Fi connections at one point. Not only is it costly to implement, but the management of it is very difficult, and the connectivity obviously was not reliable. On the cellular side, outperformed. As a matter of fact, they had 12 cellular dots, and it was an N+1 architecture, which means for every radio there was a redundant radio just in case. So they really could have got by with 6 to 24 Wi-Fi connections, and that was in a high interference, high noise environment. So cellular connectivity far outperforms in those types of environments.
Yeah, one thing I'll add to that is, a lot of folks have a misconception when they think private 5G. You think that maybe you're still using the big public carriers network, so you're using our macro towers. When you're investing into your own private 5G system, you're putting your own radio network together. That's not just macro towers. You're talking about femtocells, microcells, toy cells, and so cellular radios that are the size of that wireless access point right up there. And so when Russ talks about that 20-to-1 ratio, he's basically saying a cellular radio that size would reach 20 times farther than that Wi-Fi access point can reach.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, and I kind of make that assumption that there's a difference. But when I speak of private cellular network, I'm not talking about a slice of the public network, but I'm actually suggesting your own private cellular network inside your building that you own, operate, and deploy.
That's right. Go ahead. 5G outperforms Wi-Fi from a latency latency almost consistently. Your average latency with Wi-Fi is anywhere from 50 to 100 megabits per second, give or take your environment. With private 5G in a controlled environment, you'll get consistently around 10 milliseconds. If you start thinking about more advanced concepts like advanced spectrum, like ultra millimeter wave, that's when you can get latencies down to sub 1 millisecond. From a speed and a bandwidth perspective, though, a lot of that actually rests more on your network. So your core, your backhaul to that core, and then the types of radios that you're deploying. Is that okay? Okay. I think you had a question as well?
Yeah, so if it's your own internal 5G network, does that isolation in and of itself kind of provide the necessary level of security to protect the equipment? Or what is, like, how are, small and mid-sized manufacturers supposed to address those
Yep.
specific security issues
Yeah, if it's okay, I'll give a two-pronged answer to that briefly, and then I think any one of these guys could piggyback off of what I'm about to say. So carriers like ourselves, we have very, very stern security measures that are standardized by GSMA, 3GPP. These are all the governing bodies that basically determine what are the security standards for cellular carriers. The technology that would be purchased by a private organization, a private 5G solution, meets the same standards. So the security side of that is the same. That's one part of that answer. The second part of it is, I think there's, especially when you get more into mission critical applications or use cases, you have higher level of security sensitivity there. And I think it's important that organizations like who we partner with at CSI, Fortinet, I mean, we are a Fortinet customer ourselves for our own security implications. It's just as important to work with organizations like that for your own private business. But Ross, go ahead.
I spent 5 years in security. I would tell you that on the private cellular side, on 5G, 256-bit encryption. That's all you got to know. That is, if you go to NIST or any government regulatory agency, anything that's inside a pipe, like a packet, which we encrypt, requires 256-bit encryption. So from a security standpoint, when you talk about a network, you're talking about a pipe. Where the multi-factor authentication comes in, when that packet comes out the pipe, that's where the partnerships come in with different types of a Fortinet or some other MFA vendor, where we will work with that internal application of the organization to say, what software packages or do you use once that packet comes out of the pipe? Because then it's yours, right? So when you look at the security architecture, when that packet's inside the pipe or inside the network, on a cellular network, you're good.
Thanks, Ross. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
What's the costing difference between 5G and Wi-Fi? Like, is it a higher upfront, but like the payback period is shorter? And also, how much is the cost associated to, or is there a cost associated to switching the physical machines from Wi-Fi to 5G?
Do you want to take a crack at that? I'd be happy to. But and Joe might have something too.
You back me up this time.
Okay, I got you.
Costing. This is where I get into the type of spectrum you use, right? 5G, 4G, or LTE, and or CBRS. And I don't like to get into a costing discussion until I know the use case and what that use case does from a dollar's savings. What is it doing, right? And that's why we always say with private cellular networks, it's all about scope and scale, use case, and what you need to propagate. How many endpoints, how many machines. So without going down, I can't give you, a cost comparison, wired Wi-Fi, because it all depends upon scope and scale. It's so important, is why when we get into these organizations that we talk about use case and what is the problem or concern that you're trying to address. Because when you get to a certain point from a scale standpoint, private 5G is going to outperform, both from a security, latency, and bandwidth standpoint. When you get down to maybe smaller use cases, it's going to be a cost justification model.
Yeah, the thing I'd piggyback on that is you should think about, from a cost perspective, capability and scalability. So there's going to be use cases that are really advanced that you don't want on a public mobile network operator's network. You want complete control over that network itself. So like think about autonomous things, for instance. So capability, you think about those use cases like Ross said, you start there, figure out what's the latency requirements, throughput requirements, download and upload, all that kind of stuff. From a scalability perspective, think about this. If you're an organization and you know you want to put cellular devices out there and you're doing thousands of sensors, tens of thousands of sensors in your manufacturing line, what most organizations aren't fit for is the operational cost of paying a monthly reoccurring charge for every one of those connections and then having to deal with the traditional problems of overages and all that kind of stuff. If you own and operate your own network, sure, you're spending more money up front capital-wise to get that network infrastructure in place, but what you're doing is building that foundation to scale tens of thousands of connections without having to pay a public carrier extra MRCs, if that makes sense. Ryan?
Ross, you had mentioned John Deere interoperability between public and private. So I guess I'm curious on the status of what is the level of interoperability between private and public cellular network currently?
Yeah, there isn't any. As a matter of fact, that's part of the education that we do with the industry, is that the private cellular network is an in-building concept today. And as soon as, because even when we were down there, they were talking about the combines. These harvester tractors are just huge, and they're sitting in the yard. But once they leave that 100-foot yard, they have no control of it. And one of the challenges that they have is that it goes out to their parts facility, and they don't know where it goes. So one of the challenges today is that private cellular network is in concept in the market, is looked at as an in-building solution. And then what US Cellular is saying is that, no, it's not just an in-building solution, but given our relationships and our roaming agreements, you can track and trace that entire product through the entire supply chain. So
what's the next step, I guess, between?
it's just the next step is really education and helping them architect something. And again, it comes up as a, do I need that application today? Do I need that tracking and tracing capability through my supply chain today? And that's where the conversation kind of goes.
Yeah, two things to that. So the network architecture has already been there for a long time. The carriers are doing this for ourselves. So this is really just a carrier taking an architecture they use for themselves and extending it to a customer to help them expand their coverage. The second thing I'll say, and then we'll do some closing remarks here, is that your description of that John Deere experience totally gave me a flashback to the movie Interstellar, where all of the combines were kind of going crazy. And anyways, fun fact. Joe, do you have some closing remarks?
Yeah, well, thank you all for being here. We appreciate, like James said before, we appreciate you giving us your attention. This is an exciting time. The innovations that are available to us because of the accessibility of the advanced tools is tremendous. I've been around for a long time, and I've never seen anything quite so interesting, which is why I'm still around. The opportunities to string a number of these different technologies together to produce a highly beneficial outcome in a wide variety of areas, for anything from employee satisfaction to manufacturing competitiveness to employee health and safety to, essentially it could be even as far as customer experience. You can provide tremendous customer experience now that we couldn't provide before. They can see where their products are in production. They can see what status it is. They can even see if we do it, if we want to enable it, they can even see the quality checks that go on as they go through, and they can make determinations on what they want to do with those products. It's amazing the things we can do. It all has to have a business case. And like Ross was saying, everything we do has to have a business case. Your mobility, if you need mobility because that gives you a competitive advantage, you need the business case. And that's partly what we're helping to do, and that's why we collaborate with the UWM and the other institutions, because there's people that are always thinking about how those business cases can be brought to fruition, how they can provide a reality and continue to drive innovation in manufacturing.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Well said. Bala, do you have anything you want to add?
Thank you, everyone, for coming here for today. Hope you had a good time the last 1 hour. I'm going to echo what Joe said. I mean, the only thing I would like to add is try and innovate and come up with new ideas. Don't be shy. Don't be scared. If you have new ideas, come and innovate. You have the technologies. Make it, build something the world can talk about, and have fun.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, everybody, for coming. And I really enjoyed my panel guests here, Bala and Joe. And like we touched upon, it's a team effort in advanced technology and especially in manufacturing and distribution. So you can't do one without the other. And I'll say this, in the publication that just came out today from Zebra Technologies, and then they said, our 5G products are nowhere without 5G technology. So as they bring out their new handheld devices with 5G, they don't work on Wi-Fi. They don't work on other networks. So 5G is a future-proof opportunity for manufacturing, and with Rockwell and Microsoft at our side, we're here to conquer the world.
Awesome. Conquer the world and have fun. That's what I heard there. That's great. So thank you all again for coming in today. The last thing I'll leave you with before the applaud, I got like 5 minutes of listening to these guys talk about tech stocks while I was sitting up here before this thing got started. And I can highly advise each and every one of you to grab them after they leave the stage and maybe ask them about some good investment tips. So thanks again, everybody, for coming. We really appreciate it.